The consequences of not marrying and not having children are here. On the first day of school in Jiangsu, a primary school had only 3 new first-grade students, and the number of students in the whole school was just 99. To cope with this reality, the school was forced to educate first and second graders in the same classroom and to combine some courses.
The issue faced by a primary school in Jiangsu is not an isolated case. According to statistics, the total number of kindergartens in China decreased by 5,610 in 2022 compared to 2021. With the declining child population in China, more and more kindergartens are shutting down. The problem of a declining birth rate in China has become a serious national security issue, as well as impacting the maternal and infant industry and the early childhood education market. In Fuyang County, Anhui Province, the largest county in China in terms of population, with 2.3 million registered residents in 2022, 50 private kindergartens were confirmed to be closing in August. Among these, 12 kindergartens that applied to cease operations were registered only in 2021, and one was established in June 2022, indicating they had to shut down within a year due to the lack of students. Xia Jing, an associate professor at Capital Normal University and a member of the China Preschool Education Association, stated in February this year, the first wave of kindergarten closures has already begun. This year might be the best year, and it will get more difficult later on. In many kindergarten director groups, it's been common since last year to see kindergartens clearing out tables and chairs, signifying an irreversible trend of closures and the intractable problem of China's declining birth rate. A netizen posted a community notice on Xiaohongshu with the title, "No one is having babies anymore." The post revealed that in a community housing of nearly 10,000 people, there were no new births in 3 months, as seen in the subsidy application notice in the photo. The netizen expressed shock and concern about the situation in 10 to 20 years. The National Bureau of Statistics of China recently published the China Statistical Yearbook 2023, revealing the birth rates, death rates, and natural growth rates of 31 provinces. In 2022, 20 provinces experienced negative growth, an increase of 7 provinces from the previous year. China's population was 1.4 billion, a decrease of 850,000 from the end of 2021, marking the first decline since the Great Famine of 1959 to 1961. According to official statistics, the number of newborns in China, which was 17.9 million in 2016, has been rapidly decreasing at an annual rate of 1.5 million. Since 2017, the birth population has dropped from 17.2 million to 9.6 million in 2022, falling below 10 million for the first time last year. The birth rate in 2022 was only 6.77 per thousand, down by 0.75 per thousand from the previous year. Experts estimate that, based on pregnant women's registration data from May 2023, this year's birth population will drop below 8 million. To provide a more relatable comparison, even during the most difficult year of 1939 in the 8-year Sino-Japanese War, there were about 8 million newborns, with other war periods seeing between 8 and 10 million. This means that even during wartime, more children were born than now. So why are people in modern China so reluctant to have children?
It's not about not having the money to raise a child or not being able to devote energy to a child. It's that this society doesn't give me confidence in the environment for a child's growth. I think that's a sad reality for many young people. Just yesterday, I saw a vlogger's video. He talked about how, at friends' weddings, unmarried women used to rush forward to catch the bridal bouquet, hoping for good romantic fortune. Now, when it's time to throw the bouquet, everyone backs away. Nobody wants it. So do you see? People have really lost hope in love. My parents' generation thinks we don't want to have children because we lack responsibility, but it's not true. We just don't have confidence here, especially with the high housing prices. My child would probably have to squeeze into a small space, just like me.
Since 1979, the Chinese government's implementation of the one-child policy has forcibly altered the natural growth trend of the population, leading to an imbalance in the population structure. Although China enjoyed the demographic dividend of economic growth in the 1990s, the abnormal population structure began to limit the possibility of continued economic and social development. Now, the consequences have arrived. In 2014, the Chinese government gradually relaxed strict controls on childbirth, transitioning from the single-child policy to allowing couples where one partner is an only child to have 2 children. This was followed by the universal 2-child policy in 2016 and the 3-child policy in 2021. Even in 2022, China effectively acknowledged children born out of wedlock, essentially ending birth planning while implementing various policies to encourage childbirth. However, these efforts have failed to reverse the continuously plummeting birth rate. It's not just childbirth. The willingness of young Chinese people to marry has also significantly decreased. According to the China Statistical Yearbook 2023, there were about 10.51 million first marriages in 2022, a 9.16% decrease from 2021, marking the first time the number of first marriages has fallen below 11 million in many years. A netizen commented, "People used to get married for survival, now they don't." Population expert and research fellow at the Guangdong Provincial Government Counselor's Office, Dong Yuzheng, analyzed several factors why young people are less inclined to marry today. These include the stability of marriages in real life. Many no longer see marriage and childbirth as essential life goals, coupled with the rising costs of marriage. To rescue the severely deteriorating birth rate, Chinese President Xi Jinping, in a speech at the 13th National Women's Congress of China in October, called for actively fostering a new type of marriage and childbirth culture. He believes that CCP officials have a duty to strengthen guidance on young people's views on love, childbirth, and family. Xi also appealed for women to return to the family, to raise children and care for the elderly, setting goals for Chinese women to marry and have children. As the state actively promotes pro-natal policies, netizens fear that this might lead to forcing women to have children, and these fears are becoming reality. A Chinese netizen recently revealed that a village in Jiangxi held a meeting demanding every woman in the village have children, including the netizen's 46-year-old sister, who was also called and asked to have a third child. Netizens noticed that discussions about Chinese-style dinky, double income no kids yet, suddenly topped Baidu's hot search on November 20th, with many accounts actively persuading people to have children, clearly indicating manipulated trends. Additionally, videos have emerged advocating Taiwanese women marrying into China for childbirth, with various incentives like housing subsidies and a 100,000 yuan bonus for each child born.
Our country can open up to people from Taiwan to boost the birth rate. We should encourage cross-strait marriages.
If girls from Taiwan marry into our mainland, we provide a 500,000 renminbi housing subsidy for each individual. We have a large inventory of houses now. Just by marrying into our mainland, you will receive a 500,000 renminbi housing subsidy or a one-time payment into your account. Furthermore, for having a child, there's a one-time subsidy of 100,000 renminbi.
These posts and videos, along with encouragements to marry and give birth, highlight the authorities' panic over the rapidly declining birth rate and their determination to motivate young people to reproduce. However, a saying is now popular online in China. If the birth of a child is to inherit one's own hard labor, anxiety, and poverty, then not having children is also a form of kindness. Chinese young people's reluctance to have children, aside from the influence of birth control policies, is due to many other factors, such as economic pressures, educational costs, medical security, social environment, lifestyle, and more.
中国年轻人为什么不消费不买房？
Why don't young people in China spend, buy houses, get married, or have children? Essentially, it's a rational and logical behavior that aligns with survival. Why are Chinese people always struggling? The labor support ratio refers to how many people one worker can support. In France and Germany, it's 1 to 6.8. In the UK, it's 1 to 6.5. In the US, it's 1 to 4.8. In Japan, it's 1 to 3.8. And even in South Korea, where the housing and stock markets have crashed and the birth rate is plummeting, it's 1 to 3.5. Even India, criticized for its caste system and train ticket scalping, has a ratio of 1 to 1.8. But in China, it's just 1 to 1.1. What does this mean? It means a working person in China can barely support themselves, let alone others, and this is under our crazy work hours. If we can rely on our parents, we can just manage to get by. Without them, we're basically spending more than we earn, needing loans to survive. Earn in Shenzhen, spend in Shenzhen. Don't think about taking anything home. Come to the city with 3,000 yuan to find a job, end up with 30,000 yuan in debt by year end. Trying to make the family proud. You won't believe it, but our current labor support ratio of 1 to 1.1 might be the highest we'll see in the next decade. Soon, we might even have to pay to work. We just ask ourselves one question. If it's hard enough for one person to get by, why get married? If it's hard for a family to support itself, why have children? Normally, a family's labor support ratio needs to be at least 1 to 4 for healthy growth, meaning 2 working adults can support both sets of parents and 2 children. In 2020, China had a population of 253 million children, aged 0 to 14, and 264 million people aged 60 and above, indicating that the elderly population has surpassed the number of young children. The number of children per 100 working age population stood at 28.3, and the number of elderly dependents per 100 workers was at 29.5. Experts predict that by 2050, China's population aged 60 and above will exceed 500 million, making it the country with the most elderly population globally. By 2073, the old age dependency ratio is expected to reach an alarming 102, meaning every 100 workers would need to support 102 elderly individuals. China is transitioning from a focus on child rearing to elderly care, a significant challenge given that child rearing primarily relies on family expenditure, while elder care demands extensive social resources and healthcare system support. The cost of elder care is generally 3 to 4 times that of child rearing. Not to mention, China's labor force currently faces severe employment challenges, including pay cuts and layoffs. In such a macro environment, it's increasingly difficult for young people to consider having children. The story of Liang Liang and Li Jun, a couple who became well known for their protests against an unfinished real estate project, illustrates why many young people hesitate to start families. The couple saved up for their marriage and bought an apartment in Jiangsu's Rongcheng City in November 2021. They began recording and sharing their loan repayment process, gaining hundreds of thousands of followers on various social platforms. In 2022, the real estate market plummeted and the Rongcheng City project halted, leading to a crisis. Adding to their woes, Li Jun faced a pay cut, and with the birth of their daughter, their family's financial situation worsened. Despite repeated visits to the sales office, they received no resolution, only evasions and delays. Their plight garnered significant online attention and media coverage, making them prominent figures in the fight against unfinished real estate projects. Yet, they received no compensation. On November 15, 2022, during another visit to the Rongcheng City sales office for compensation, Liang Liang and Li Jun were reportedly assaulted by staff members. According to a video they shared, the sales office had cut off internet access and surveillance, possibly blocking live broadcast signals. The couple alleged that the sales staff instigated a physical altercation, leading to both being beaten. Their live streaming phone and car keys were stolen, and their car tires were punctured. Their tragic story has resonated with many young netizens, prompting discussions about the challenges young couples face in contemporary China. One netizen said, "Their struggles all stem from scrimping and saving to buy a house. If they had just lain flat from the start, not had children, not bought a house, not strived for more, they could have lived a stable, happy life." This is a declaration to everyone, especially the young, that the most hardworking, law-abiding, and optimistic citizens don't deserve the Chinese dream, and neither does anyone else. Thank you to Liang Liang and Li Jun for showing us the harsh reality of China. For young people in China today, hard work does not necessarily equate to happiness. In this environment of uncertainty, striving might only lead to more misfortune. As a result, many choose not to exert effort from the beginning. The social phenomenon of lying flat, or tangping, has become a rational choice for them. In addition to the lack of desire to have children, the impact of reproductive health on birth rates in China is increasingly significant. In August 2023, Chao Jie, vice president of Peking University and a reproductive medicine expert, warned that the number of newborns in 2023 might drop to between 7 and 8 million. This assessment is based on the evaluation of reproductive health issues in Chinese women, including infertility. American demographer Yifu Xian pointed out that the infertility rate in China had reached 18% by 2020. With the decreasing population, resources for reproductive medicine research and services are becoming scarcer, exacerbating the issue of declining birth rates. The closing wave of gynecological clinics and maternity wards in China, driven by low birth rates, also means that those who want to have children will struggle even more to access medical support. Experts warn that China is currently in the peak period of its reproductive age female population, aged 20 to 34, with about 150 million in this demographic. However, in the next 5 to 15 years, this population is expected to decrease by 50 million, indicating a future steep decline in birth rates. The reluctance of young people to marry and have children not only affects future labor forces, but also has profound implications for China's economic and social development, geopolitics, and global power dynamics, potentially surpassing the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Unlike other countries where economies are primarily driven by consumption, China's economy and employment heavily rely on exports due to their large labor force and insufficient domestic demand. Other countries need a balanced import-export economy, except for the United States, which can afford a moderate deficit as the dollar is the international reserve currency. Thus, 60 to 90% of China's trade surplus comes from the U.S. According to official Chinese statistics, in 2018, China exported goods worth $478.4 billion to the U.S. and imported $155.1 billion, gaining a surplus of $323.3 billion, accounting for 92% of China's total surplus. This provided millions of jobs in China while benefiting the US capital market and consumers with ultra-low prices, but at the cost of destroying US manufacturing. The US is actively working to reduce its reliance on Chinese imports, leading to a decrease in China's trade surplus and increased devaluation pressure on the yuan. China is forced to increase exports to other countries, but their currencies are not as strong, worsening the yuan's devaluation. Engaging in unbalanced trade with developing countries leads to debt crises and political turmoil. Should China's exports to Europe and the US continue to decline, unemployment in China will rise, and the yuan will devalue significantly. Thus, Beijing urgently seeks to improve relations with the West, especially the United States, as evidenced by the Xi-Biden meeting in November. If China loses its demographic dividend and economic stagnation ensues, it will inevitably drag down the economic growth of other countries. Nations are currently aware of this issue and are re-evaluating their economic and trade policies with China for the next decade.